Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Shelby Oaks. And this movie is directed by Chris Stuckman, and it came out in 2024. I was really looking forward to it because I do like Chris Stuckman a lot. I've followed his channel for a long time, and he's one of the big inspirations to make me want to review movies. And I will say that I do think that this is a good start to his career. Like, he clearly has passion and ideas that he's trying to communicate through this movie. I was intrigued a lot by this movie just from the marketing. I do think that this movie had good trailers, and how they chose to market this movie was pretty clever, and they didn't show a lot. And from the trailers, from what I remember, they just mostly gave you the tone. They didn't give you too much of the plot, mostly because it's kind of a simple story, but also it didn't really show off too many plot beats. It was kind of just like, oh, what are we getting into here? And you don't really know what's going on. And I do feel as though that was well realized in the marketing, and it kind of reminded me of Blair Witch in ways, like the Blair Witch Project. And I'll say this much, this movie did remind me a little bit of Blair Witch 2016. I feel as though many people have forgotten about that movie. I haven't. And the reason why that pretty much stays with me rent free in my mind is because that was the first review for any movie I've ever done. It was my first video, and I was like, okay, that's fine for that to be in there. Like, where's this going to go? And I liked the concept of this movie a bit better than execution. And this movie was clearly inspired by other movies, and you can see it throughout this film. And not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it was pretty obvious to me what inspired this movie, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And it's not poorly done, and I was enjoying this movie just seeing it as a first feature film. I was like, okay, for a first feature film, this is surprisingly decent for what this is, and they normally aren't perfect, and I do feel as though the imperfections that you see in a first feature film are often things that I can point out and say, yeah, it kind of adds to the charm of the film. But overall, if this wasn't a first feature film and just was a random horror movie that was released, and I didn't know who Chris Stuckman was, and it was just a random no-name director, I don't know if I would enjoy this movie as much as I did and appreciate it for what it was. So I'm kind of torn on this movie. I do like parts about it, and it was well made overall, and there are definitely things that I will remember this movie for. It had a pretty fun third act without spoiling anything, and I liked the videotape scenes. I thought those were fun and kind of reminded me a little bit of Sinister from 2012. And the acting was good, and the biggest name from this movie for me was Keith David, and it was fun to see him. And once the plot got started, it was kind of fun for me, and I was entertained throughout the whole thing. I will say that for the first 20 minutes, I was kind of having a little bit of difficulty getting into it. I just felt as though it was kind of lacking a place to start almost. Like, it needed to give you a lot of context so you would know what is going to happen or what needs to be known for the story to work. And I do like that approach to it. And I can understand why it was done that way. I just wish that information was presented a bit differently and not so much like a documentary style. Because it personally just didn't really add much to my experience. But I will say I did appreciate the lack of dialogue in this movie. Like, there's not a lot of moments where characters are talking to one another for certain chunks of this movie. Like, in the second half, there are long portions where there are just scenes of no dialogue, and I think that's super cool. But now I have to get into my issues with the movie. The visual effects didn't look great. I just never once felt as though what I was seeing was a part of the environment. It was always a visual effect. Not saying that they were used in the movie a whole lot, but when they do show up, they're not the most convincing thing in the world to me, is how I'll put it. And I wasn't scared by anything in this movie, unfortunately. There were some creepy moments, for sure, but overall, as far as like the fear factor goes of me being scared for the characters or what's going on just visually didn't really do a whole lot for me. And as far as pacing goes, it's mostly just that first 15 minutes where I was kind of struggling to, like, okay, what's going on here? And to really get attached to the story because I just wasn't really into it all that much. But it did get better for me, and I do feel as though the flashbacks in this movie were unnecessary, and we could have just have dialogue just to have characters talk to one another. Because I personally just didn't feel as though those flashbacks added anything to the movie. Like, there's nothing really that we gain from those flashbacks, and it was just showing us visually what's going on, but also just have characters explain what's going on. I feel as though it was like, yeah, you're kind of doing the worst of both worlds in a sense, because either just show, don't tell, or just have characters kind of discuss what happened in the past and just not show it. But in this movie, they decided to do both, and that just left me wondering, that was unnecessary. There were also some jump scares in this movie that I found to be ineffective, and there's not a lot of them, but all of the jump scares in this movie were ineffective for me. I just didn't feel as though they were earned at all. But despite all of my issues and me not really being in love with this movie, I'm happy that this movie got made and it's out there in the world and we can all see it, and it's from someone that I actually like and have been following for over 10 years. And I do think that's pretty cool, but I'm just not a person who loved it. I just more or less appreciate it and would like to see more. So I do hope that Chris Stuckman does grow from here, and I do see potential for something great, and I'm excited to see what else he does. So if you're a fan of Chris Stuckman or this movie looks interesting to you, then I would recommend it, but overall I wasn't in love with it. So with all that being said, I'm going to give Shelby Oaks a 4 out of 10. Debating on giving it a 5, because there are things I do like about it, and I do respect things about it. And if it was just a no-name, didn't know who Chris Stuckman was, or just a random director, and this was just a horror movie that just got really big for no reason and wasn't anything that I really respected, I would say, yeah, this is probably just an average 4, whereas me appreciating it and me like having some context of how it was made, I'm like, I'll give it like a high 4, almost a 5 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of Shelby Oaks, and my social media links. They will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Tomorrow Never Die. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.